Hi guys, welcome back to The Social Tune. And today, finally, we're going to take a look at the debut album by Natalie Hemby, Puxico.
Looking for a time-honored tradition where the memories are made and the stories don't change. Time-honored tradition.
You know, it's about damn time I got around to reviewing some country on this channel. Now, the unfortunate fact of the matter is that country music is one of those genres that tends to get overlooked a lot of the time, even by most music critics. Now, this has been steadily improving over the past couple of years thanks to platforms like Save Country Music, but for the most part, a lot of the material still ends up slipping through the cracks. And considering how much country music ended up on my year-end lists last year, you better believe that I'm going to cover it on this channel. So we may as well kick things off with an artist who has a fair bit of acclaim behind her, Natalie Hemby. Now, before we dive into this album, it's important to note that she's been an active songwriter behind the scenes for years. For some of you mainstream country fans, you may recognize her from her writing credits on songs from Little Big Town and especially Miranda Lambert. This certainly had me interested, as some of my favorite country artists of all time started out behind the scenes, like Brandy Clark and Maury McKenna. And on top of everything else, I heard that this album contained elements of folk music. So I went into this with high hopes, and for the most part, I am pleased to announce that I was not disappointed. Sure, this album may not be on the level of some of my favorite albums of last year, but as my first taste of country music this year, I loved this. It's absolutely gorgeous. And to talk about why, we need to start things off with the production.
Oh, this town still talks about you like you never left. Hidden sounds, hidden cracks, sidewalks, and church pews. How could we forget?
Now, if you're a fan of folk music, you'll probably adore this because this album sounds beautiful. While the opening track, Time-Honored Tradition, may be built off a simple guitar pattern, which is nevertheless extremely infectious with a great sing-along chorus, most of the instrumentation on this album is amplified by echoing effects that create a haze that you can lose yourself in very easily. Okay, I would have liked a bit more bite to the instrumentation, that's just my personal preference, but when it sounds this good, I can't exactly complain. Like on Cairo, Illinois, which sounds like some of the Irish music my parents would have raised me on, and I have to admit it made me feel pretty nostalgic, especially with what I could swear was an organ in the background and of course the pedal steel that shows up across this entire album. And along with the pedal steel you have the guitars and the tambourine which come through incredibly clearly on Lovers on Display. And while the percussion across this album may be a little bit light, the hand claps on that album gave it a really nice organic touch that I really did love. And then you have Grand Restoration, which has the best elements of the first two tracks all in one instrumentally. It's a wonderful song. Actually, one of the places where the percussion actually came through really well was on Ferris Wheel, which definitely seemed to be the working title for this album if you look at the cover. And if you want an even better example, take the string-touched heavenly song This Town Still Talks About You, or the piano-touched marching ballad I'll Remember How You Loved Me. But the least expected moment was the sudden burst of energy on the closer, Return, with its prominent guitars and drums, not to mention its awesome instrumental bridge. Really, the only song that didn't grab me too much instrumentally was Worn. And even then, my only problem was that it felt like there was a bit too much going on that track, and I felt it could have been better mixed. And if I had any other criticisms, I could see some of these songs running together a bit for some people. But once you catch those infectious hooks, believe me, that won't be a problem. And now let's move on to Natalie Hemby herself.
Marching band is playing behind the film we're taking. Silhouettes and flashing lights. Oh, I can feel your hand inside of mine.
You know, this is the one aspect that a lot of people have neglected to talk about when discussing this album. And I honestly have no clue why, because Natalie Hemby does a great job here. Again, I wouldn't immediately compare her to some of her singer-songwriter contemporaries, but look, if I were to compare every single singer to Maury McKenna, I wouldn't be happy with anyone. I think the reason a lot of people have just overlooked this aspect of this album is that well, there's not much emotional range to her performance. Now, to be fair, this album doesn't really call for that much range, as we don't get any dark, tragic moments or anything, just a general feeling of wistfulness across this album, which I'll discuss in a minute. But first, the one thing that really made this album work for me personally was the multi-tracking and harmonization on this album. You should all know by now that I'm a sucker for male-female duets, and whenever Natalie Hemby is backed up by a male backing vocalist, even slightly, it sounds fantastic. Now, that's not to disparage the female backing vocalists, who also do a good job, but again, it's my personal preference, and it's consistent across this album. And now, the lyrics.
Everything you love's within your reach. Turn into a love that was returned to me. Turn into a love that was returned to me.
Okay, so here's the reason that this album may be a bit of an acquired taste, even to fans of country music. You see, even though I keep making comparisons to other country songwriters like Laurie McKenna and Brandy Clark, this album is no Bird in the Rifle or Big Day in a Small Town. A lot of these songs, while they do focus on smaller towns and their values, are much more abstract, focusing on emotion more than actual content. In other words, you're not going to get the genius songwriting of songs like Three Kids, No Husband or Old Men, Young Women, because that's not what the writing's trying to do. Instead, striving to capture the much smaller and simpler aspects of small town life. Ferris Wheel, for example, is clearly a song about the eternity of these places, as nothing really changes. But at the same time, take This Town Still Talks About You or Return, which are both songs indicating that when someone leaves that community, the people left behind do notice and are genuinely affected. Then you have Worn, where she associates certain objects with past memories and emotions. Or I'll Remember How You Loved Me, where she states she'll forget a lot of things about the passing years, like who was president at the time of this or that memory, but she'll never forget how he loved her. She'll never forget the emotion she felt in that moment.
With a longing for the leaving and the welcome home receiving joy. Still I'll keep driving past the ghost of Cairo, Illinois.
Heck, probably the best example of the small town dynamic is on Cairo, Illinois. The song she wrote about the small town just down the road from Puxico, with the poignant line, "Nothing's in a hurry except the water in between the rising banks. Oh, nothing moves, but nothing stays." Which honestly sums up that small town dynamic better than I ever could. So ultimately, I love this album. It's gorgeously produced and excellently written, especially for what it's trying to be on its own smaller scale. And on that scale, I'm going to give it a strong 8 out of 10. Damn great job, Natalie Hemby. I'm so glad this is my first taste of country music in 2017. You know, instead of, say, Brantley Gilbert's next album. And as for you guys, if you're a fan of country music, or even if you're not, check this out. You may find you love it, even if it does take a few listens to connect. So, thank you guys for watching. If there are any other albums coming out the next month or so that you'd like me to review, please post them in the comments or tweet them at me so I can listen to them and possibly review them. Also, you'll find a link to my Twitter in the description. Feel free to follow me if you'd like. Please subscribe so you don't miss a thing, and until the next time, I'm Finn, and this is The Social Tune, signing off.